In the previous episode, we left off with our space scientists trudging through the wildlife forests of an island, all in search of the most suitable launch pad for our rockets. This was the year 1968 and the island was Sriharikota. Now, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was by now not just heading India's space mission. He was also given the responsibility of leading India's atomic energy development after the very sudden death of Dr. Homi Bhabha in a plane crash. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai used to travel every week between Mumbai, Delhi, Ahmedabad, Tumba and many more international trips where he would have to attend conferences for scientists. He also had to undertake many diplomatic missions for India. And it didn't look like he took too many breaks. On one such trip to Tumba, on the 29th of December 1971, he had had a full day of meetings with his young group of space scientists. And after all those meetings, he went back to his hotel at night and he intended to wake up early and go for a swim in the sea, which was his habit every time he was in Tumba. The next morning, when the hotel staff went up to his room, they found the large room uncluttered and clean. And under the net on the bed lay Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, a book open on his chest. A doctor had been sent for, and he said that Dr. Sarabhai had died a couple of hours before. One of the hotel staff, Mrs. Shandamma, says his face was so fresh. He looked like he was just sleeping. India lost one of its greatest torchbearers, not just for space, but for all of science and technology. But now, who was going to take over the big dreams of Dr. Sarabhai? At this time, the Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi, when she was trying to identify the successor to Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, a telephone rang in the corridors of the University of California. A professor who was then teaching aeronautical engineering to a group of students there was summoned to the phone with a message from the Prime Minister of India, requesting him to come back and spearhead India's space mission. Before we jump into the story of what next happened as part of India's space mission, hi, this is Sangeeta from What's New Today, a podcast channel about current events. And as all of you must know, clearly I don't just narrate stories. I happen to have a wonderful time chatting with children to get their perspectives of what they make of all these stories that sound grand to me. Do they sound as grand to them?
Hi, my name is Pranshi Chadwar. I study in grade 6 at SP Nutan Academy.
My name is Dhruv and I am 11 years old.
Hi Pranshi and Dhruv, welcome back to this podcast channel. I know both of you have seen Chandrayaan 3 launch on TV, but have you heard of the Chandrayaan 1?
So basically with Chandrayaan 1, so the reason why they launched it is so that they could find water on the moon. The launch was a success, but it failed in space as the star tracking system overheated due to the radiation of the sun.
But it found water on moon.
They
It
had
was-
traces of water.
It was 95% of a success. It was planned to go for 2 years, but it went only for 312 days. It was launched on 22nd October 2008.
Yeah, this was before either one of you was born.
Yes.
Yeah. So I obviously can't ask if you saw it.
No.
Launch. Okay.
I can't see any of the launch because everything is in Andhra Pradesh.
No, you can see it on TV.
TV, yes, we can see it right now also on TV.
You can go see old videos, no? Did you see Chandrayaan 1 launch videos on YouTube?
Yes, I saw.
I didn't see videos on YouTube, but my mother still told me how it was launched and what happened to it.
I want to say something about the astronaut suit.
Mm.
We always imagine an astronaut wearing a nice thick suit. I want to tell you why is it so thick and bulky. So the entire suit itself is heavier than the person, but in space, of course, you don't feel weight because there's no gravity. So you see that huge backpack beneath the under behind the astronaut's bag. That is actually the oxygen tank, which helps the astronaut to basically stay alive. They also wear the suit during launch because there's actually a lot of pressure exerted. So you are like pushing the ground against gravity and going so high up, so fast. So of course there will be a lot of pressure and all your blood rushes up. So you can have nosebleeds, you can have ear bleeds. So for the to prevent that from happening, we wear the spacesuit during launch off so that our body remains at the correct temperature, it has the correct pressure, etc., etc. And there is also a mini laptop or a mini screen on your chest over here so that you can see if there is any technical issues or there's less oxygen in your tank.
Dhruv, you wanted to become an astronaut. Are you willing to wear all these bulky suits?
Yeah. I'm actually not that ready yet. I just recovered from a fracture.
But once you are about another 5-6 years old, you'll start wearing bulky suits, walking around just to get a sense.
Yeah, if it comes to that, I will. But I'm
You can't
just planning
move your
astronaut.
hand.
I'm just planning astronaut and all. In case my plan as a doctor or as a singer doesn't work out. So those are just. I'm really interested in them, but they are gonna be plan B if my plan A doesn't work out.
So plan A is doctor or singer and plan B is astronaut. Okay, so you'll start walking around with heavy backpacks after you decide whether medicine and singing don't work.
And I especially like it that becoming a singer is plan A and becoming an astronaut is plan B for you. But because this podcast episode is not just about career planning, but it's also about tracing the journey of India's space mission, we'll go back to the 1970s, which is where we left off our story.
There's a small interesting story. United States had already sent a satellite. Soviet Union had also already sent a satellite. And in fact, the first ever satellite that went off
Sputnik.
Was Sputnik from the Soviet Union. US had shortly thereafter followed up with another satellite. And China also sent a satellite. At this time, India wanted to put together its own satellite and send it to space. By this time, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was then dead. But he had always made very, very clear long-term plans for what India's space program has to look like. Even before he had died, he had said India needs to be completely independent. We have to be able to make every part of whatever that we have to, send up into space. Do you know what are the various parts? What is a satellite? What's a launch vehicle? Have you guys heard these words?
You mean a man-made satellite?
Yeah.
Artificial satellite.
Yeah.
So basically, India launched its first satellite, Aryabhatta. So a satellite is something that revolves around a planet.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Yeah, I've heard satellite, but I didn't hear launch vehicle.
Okay.
I have heard in those videos. So the satellite is a device. I always see that those satellites have solar panels. So the satellite is something that orbits around a planet. It can be the moon, it can be Mars. India has sent a satellite to Mars. It sends us pictures of the moon to the Earth. It studies the moon or the planet.
Okay, so satellite is something that we send off from the ground and it keeps orbiting the planet that we want it to orbit.
Yes.
Right? What's the launch?
Chandrayaan 1, 2, and 3. All the 3 ones have their own satellite inside it.
Right. What's a launch vehicle?
I think those two rods beside the rocket, that it helps to launch the rocket. So first it fires just to launch up the rocket into the sky somewhere near the Earth's atmosphere. Then they come off, they disassemble from the main rocket, and they just fall off. Or they keep wandering in space. They burn out and fall into the sea. So I think that is what launch vehicle is.
I couldn't have explained it better.
Now, after Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's death, there was an incredibly wonderful human being called Professor Satish Dhawan, who was the man who took over the Indian space program. So, by Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, we all know him as sort of the father of India's space journey. Professor Satish Dhawan was the man who took over this infant and really nourished it, set together very clear structures. Like once you're 2, 3, 4 years old, your mother has to feed you all. After you're 6 or 7 years of age, somebody has to give you a timetable, a structure, what to study in your school. That nourishment to the entire Indian space program was given by Professor Satish Dhawan.
So actually, I also read about this. So basically, he only put it in Sriharikota because that is a place next to where he teaches. So he can both teach and launch rocket.
Kind of right. So he used to be teaching in a place called the Indian Institute of Science. He was the director of that place. He told Indira Gandhi, I would love to be a part of this Indian space program and I'm very happy to lead it. But I also want to continue teaching because teaching is really my passion. So please don't ask me to leave that. So Indira Gandhi agreed. So Sriharikota is in Andhra Pradesh. And of course, he was teaching in Bangalore. But I think the reason why they chose Sriharikota was only because it's right next to the coast. So, and it's on the eastern side, it's close to the equator. Of course, the other reason which we did not discuss earlier, right? You always want your launch pad next to a coast because if the launch fails, the vehicle will fall into the sea. It won't fall, on a city where people live. So most launch pads or spaceports in the world are only by the sea, except there's one by Russia, which is in Kazakhstan. It's literally in the middle of a huge cold desert. So again, if it falls, it'll just fall on the desert land. There's not much of habitation.
But if it falls in the desert, it has a lot of weight, of course. So when it falls, there must be a huge impact. There can be a dent in the Earth's surface. There can be a sandstorm. So there can be natural calamities.
100% true. If you think about it, even when it falls inside the ocean,
There can be a tsunami,
no, I don't think there's a tsunami
Flood.
because of that.
flood.
It can affect the marine ecosystem. I don't know how it affects, but if we think about it, even when a rocket disintegrates and falls into the ocean, there are creatures there which can get affected. The ocean floor can get affected. I'm sure either way, whether it's on a desert or here, it does affect the ecosystem around. Coming back to our story, Professor Satish Dhawan is now the person who's leading the Indian space program, and at which point India got a call from Moscow, Russia. They said, we'll help you send your satellite into space. You design your satellite, we will help you launch it because you needed a launch vehicle. India still does not have a launch vehicle. We'll help you launch it into space. We'll do it free of cost for you. But the satellite that you're sending into space has to be heavier than the satellite that China has sent into space. There is this tiny little competition going on. The Soviet Union was never terribly excited about China becoming a stronger superpower than any other country. So they were willing to help India they were willing to give India a free launch vehicle into space as long as India was able to build a satellite that was much heavier. Throughout the entire space journey, if you see, there are a lot of angles of friendships and enmity between countries, which plays a much bigger role than what our space scientists try to accomplish. But our space scientists have to work with all these challenges. It's not like they just have to understand engineering and science and maths. They have to understand which country will probably give us a launch vehicle now. By which time frame do I have to work? Speaking of that, China had launched a satellite of, I think, which weighed 160 kilos or something. Wait, let me double check. Huh? Oh no, China's first satellite weight was 173 kilos. Moscow said, how heavy is your satellite going to be? So India said, we'll do something that's more than 300 kilos. And we worked on the satellite, which is today called Aryabhat. In fact, I think there's also an interesting story there. They came up with 3 names for the first Indian satellite, and they gave all the 3 names to Indira Gandhi. The 3 names that were given to her were Jawahar, Aryabhat, and the other was called Maitri. Maitri means friendship, to sort of signify the friendship between India and Soviet Union then. And everybody thought Indira Gandhi was going to choose Jawahar.
Because India had independence in that time.
Now think of a more personal angle. Indira Gandhi's father was Jawaharlal Nehru. So they all thought they'll use her father's name, but she chose Aryabhat. Aryabhat was an ancient Indian astronomer.
Aryabhat was the one who invented zero.
Professor Satish Dhawan and a man called U.R. Rao, who's a great space scientist, who was working under Professor Satish Dhawan then. These people flew to launch center I was talking to you about, in the middle of a desert. It was from that launch center that India's first satellite, Aryabhat, was launched into.
How much did it actually weigh?
360 kilos was the weight of our first
Double.
satellite.
More
Yeah.
than double.
Yeah. Yes, for the man who had invented zero, we sent 360 kilos worth of satellite then. By a wide margin, we had outdone China. Feeling thrilled.
Yes.
I think you're as competitive as most of these countries are, no?
As part of research for this episode, I found 2 very interesting photographs. One was the photo of a 2 rupee note issued by India. I think this was sometime in the 1970s. It has the picture of a 26-sided object floating in space. This was the Aryabhat. The second photograph is that of a stamp issued by the Soviet Union in 1984. On it, you can see the flags of the Soviet Union and India side by side, and beneath them is the photo of Aryabhat floating in space. I think the 2 rupee notes with the Aryabhat printed on it was issued right till the end of the 1990s. There's a chance if you rummage through some old drawers, you'll find this 2 rupee note. The stories for this episode were based on the interviews of Professor U.R. Rao, the book A Biography of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai by Amrita Shah, and a report published by the European Space Institute on Russia's space cooperation with China and India. In the next episode, we shall see how some of the famous Indian TV shows like Ramayana and Mahabharat. The young listeners of today may not know that these were famous TV shows, but people who are above 35 years of age might remember these. What do these TV shows have to do with India's space journey? We'll find out in the next episode.